Are you enjoying our best of episodes but ready for something fresh? Here's something you may not know. Every time we release a classic episode in this feed, we also release a brand new show exclusively for our Patreon subscribers. That means there's always a fresh episode waiting for you, along with an entire back catalog of private shows available the moment you subscribe. Welcome to Command Control Power, Apple Tech Support and Business Talk, the longest-running podcast for Apple consultants. For over a decade, we've shared weekly stories from the front lines of tech support, candid conversations about clients and business management, and interviews with fellow consultants and industry partners. What you're about to hear is a best-of episode originally broadcast on June 7th, 2016, a classic from the Command Control Power archives. If you'd rather keep up with our newest episodes, join us on Patreon. Our private podcast feed is created specifically for Apple IT professionals and takes a deeper look at running a consultancy, supporting clients, managing employees, maintaining large device fleets, and navigating the everyday challenges of the business. For a modest monthly contribution, you'll get every new episode, plus immediate access to our growing library of private shows, bonus content, exclusive interviews, and insights you won't hear anywhere else. Subscribe today at commandcontrolpower.com and click support.
We are very honored to be joined once again this week by Richard Wingfield, head geek at Envision Design in Houston, Texas. Welcome back, Richard.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all having me on today.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you. We missed you at ACES, and I know you missed ACES as well. And I think that was what prompted inviting you back on to just rehash some stuff we talked about, and maybe just dive a little bit deeper. So what's been new with you? We had you back. We had you on the show. I think it was was it a year ago at this point, something like that.
Gosh, I don't even know. Time flies when you're looking back at calendars like this and looking at your kids growing up, and it's like. I was just so upset, with ACES 3 hours down the road in Austin from us here in Houston, and I was going to be on the panel with you guys, and was so looking forward to continuing the managed services and Watchman drinking game and in person, and didn't get to come. So I think I hit you guys up with a really long email after listening to your ACES live show, which was great, by the way. Sounds like y'all had fun doing the live show.
We sure did. Yeah, you missed a great, moment there, just, being in the spotlight for a little bit and getting I think, as Sam said, the applause from the audience gave us goosebumps just being up there. And yeah, it was a good time, not to rub it in, but yeah, it was a great conference all around. I highly recommend it. And I'm sure, it won't be in Texas again next year, I don't think, but I'm.
No, I've already talked to Luis about being on the list, and just, I'm signed up to let me know where it is as soon as possible. And hopefully we won't have the family conflicts that we have, but everybody knows how that goes, right? Best laid plans, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, so I think a good question to throw out at you there was just to maybe give you the forum to respond to I guess an audience member from the live show who was asking about a definition of MSP and said, normally in the Windows world that meant basically unlimited everything. And you come from a Windows background, I guess, and so you had some opinions on that.
We've had both, and we've worked with both, and I've been a Mac guy and a Mac consultant for a long time. I've told you guys before, and just say it again, my background is as a recovering architect. So I got into the technology world being the tech guy in architecture, and then that over a period of time transitioned into consulting business and not doing architecture. So we've certainly been exposed to both Mac and Windows, but for my business practice, I avoided MSP for a very long time because we had a number of Windows clients who would come to us as a Mac consultant because they were firing their third Windows MSP, and their complaint was, for the Windows guys, being an MSP seems to mean doing as little as possible. They'd quote really inexpensive rates, and then everything but Windows service packs was extra. And so I think I avoided moving toward managed services because I didn't want to become one of those service providers that all the clients hated, because it's like, well, now that we signed up for them, they never show up. They don't want to come out. Everything costs extra. So when we did our managed service plan, we did kind of a hybrid model that said we need something in between it's really inexpensive and everything's extra, or it's super expensive and nobody can afford it, but we've covered all the contingencies for us. And so we came up with our hybrid plan. But yes, the commenter at your live show was like, well, yeah, everything's included with Windows MSP. And my experience with clients coming from Windows MSPs was that they were usually unhappy. And I don't remember who said it on the panel, but somebody was talking about the Mac ACN group being kind of used to really personalized customer service. And I think that's been true. And so that's how we've tried to develop our managed service practice.
So how did you reconcile that once you realized that you didn't want to be what everybody else was doing? How did you meet in the middle? How did you arrive there?
Sometimes I look over my shoulder to see who's been spying on us, watching our growth pattern, as you guys discuss with other people on the podcast, how they've come to it. We did a lot of things. We did, okay, we'll just do pre-purchase discounted hours, and we'll set up different systems for different clients. And, we kind of edged into managed services with some of our bigger clients by going, hey, we're going to set up, it's still going to be hourly, and we'll check with you every month, but historically, we've been working for you for 5-6 years. We know this is what it's going to take. Let's try to balance this out. So we kind of backed into it. But when we decided to really make the switch and go to the, I guess what everybody's going to call the all-included, but say, hey, here's your flat monthly fee, and that's what it's going to be. We developed what we called a hybrid plan, where we said we're going to have a per device charge for mobile devices, computers, servers. Then we're going to have a line item for consulting. And then the third part of the invoice is if you're buying any services from us, if we're hosting email for you, if we're doing backups or running a crash plan server. So it was kind of a 3-tier invoice, and it was per device, not per person, because we've had 5-person offices with 17 computers because they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So we came up with that kind of 3-part managed service plan, and the single line item for the consulting relates to what you guys talked about as well. We, I think you'll call it sharing the math. We don't share the math either, but we had historical data for all of our existing clients, and we could go in and say, hey, we looked at the last 3 years. Here's what we know it takes to take care of you. It's just been a roller coaster of busy month, not much busy. We're going to balance that out, and now you're going to get proactive support, and we're going to be monitoring things and doing those types of services for you. And we probably had 60 or 70% of our existing clients sign up over the course of the first year that we did it, and I was pretty happy with that.
Wow.
So you weren't offering necessarily a financial incentive, but you were telling them that this is what historically we've been spending, or you've been spending on our consulting services, and we are going to offer you an all-in plan, but we are going to be much more proactive with the services that we offer you rather than reactive.
Right. And a couple of things on that. I think if no clients listen to this podcast, right? So we can talk about what goes on behind closed doors. But I felt like the best transition was going to happen if I could tell clients, hey, your yearly cost really isn't going to change very much. It might go up just a little bit, but it's going to be pretty close to what it was before. You're just going to get what we really love down here in the South for our energy bills is balanced billing, where you don't get those 3 or 4 months in the summer where your electric bill is 5 times what it is the rest of the year. They just balance it out over the course of the full year. So we kind of offered it as, we know your history. You've been with us. You trust us already. We know what this is going to take. This is going to be a balanced billing for you. So now you have a known monthly cost instead of a really high one and then a low one, and it's all over the place. And then my secret plan behind that was, we knew what it took to take care of them with lots of fire drills and lots of hourly stuff and ignoring things. And by putting in place Watchman and Casper and other Zendesk and other automations, I figured, crossed my fingers and hoped, and it turned out to be true, as we got more efficient, even though we didn't raise our rates with them, we're going to be more profitable in the end because we're doing automation and because we're doing things proactively. Does that make sense a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that was my question as well, because there has to be some benefit to you to do this. I mean, obviously there is a benefit of, on your side as well, the balanced income, the predictable income. It corresponds to the predictable expense on the client side, which is in itself a nice benefit. But, we all would like to think that the business runs more smoothly and hopefully you make more profit. And like you said, it was a little bit of a leap of faith. But can you speak to that aspect of it? Like, have you been able to measure in retrospect? Maybe you have, so much more free time, or you can do, support more clients with the same number of hours or something like that?
Yeah, I think a couple of those are true for sure. I'll bring up Luis, and I also really missed getting to go to ACES because I haven't been face-to-face with Luis since some of the ACN trainings that we went to a number of years back. But I think he's spoken about, hey, I love managed services because I don't have to track my time. The ex-architect in me is like, we track all our time no matter what, no matter how we're billing for a project. So we kept tracking time the same way we did before. So that's one way that we've monitored what we're doing with clients. My fear, and some of the fear from the guys on the team, was also, hey, if we go to this partner plan, people are just going to inundate us and we're going to spend way more time on them. And, that was a fear that we had. Our hope was that since it wasn't going to be fire drills, we would spend either less time than we did before, or we wouldn't be spending I got to rebuild your server for the third time because you wait till it all crashes. It would be smaller bits here and there, so they would feel like they got more attention because it was little bits here and there instead of an emergency and then nothing for 2 months and then another emergency. And the other thing we did to kind of cover that upfront cost is we would look at how big a client was and have a one-time setup fee to say, hey, to get you set up on Partner Plan, we're going to come out and install Watchman. We've got some stuff to do. And we would just look at, is that going to be one guy on site for a day? Or, what's it going to take? Does this client have multiple locations? And then you guys know this, you have to just read each of your different clients. Like some of those clients, I would know, I could quote that initial setup and then say, if you decide in the next 30 days, we'll do that part for free. Because whatever that number was, if it was $1,200 a day, they go, oh, I'm not going to pay that to get started. But once you get them on the managed service, then you have that recurring consistent income. So to answer your question, we've been monitoring the time we spend, and for most of the clients, it's been really good. We have in our agreement that we can, either the client or Envision can review that scope of work and what we're doing quarterly, and we'll change it if needed. And I've had to have that conversation with a couple of clients and go, hey, when we signed you up, you said you had 5 people and you just did A, B, and C. You just did email and internet. And now you've added a graphic designer. You've installed 25 different pieces of software. We're doing more for you. Here's how that consulting fee. You haven't changed the number of devices you have, but we're going to change that monthly consulting fee. It's going to go up because you're now requiring more attention from us than you did before, than you did initially. And most of the clients have been fine with that. Some have even said, yeah, I was wondering when you were going to realize that, so
that's always nice validation when they're
right.
they're preempting that for you.
Yeah.
Well, then that was going to be my question. Is you explained how sometimes you can have a situation where the client is neglecting things, like they don't want to have you come in and do a little bit of a tune-up on the server or whatever. They'd rather just ignore it until it becomes a fire drill and an emergency, and that becomes less efficient to support and also just less predictable, so more just challenging in general as an operations side. And you can more easily plan for things as they're on this partner plan of yours. You can, schedule maintenance and things like that a little bit more proactively. So there's those benefits. But at the same time, do you find that clients suddenly decide to call you more and invite you to do more things? Or, do you find more things wrong that now the onus is sort of on you to fix because, more or less you're doing everything? I know it's not all in, but you're supposed to basically take care of things.
Yeah, they're kind of two sides to that coin, I guess. And one is the fear that they're going to go, great, can you just come sit by me at my desk for 8 hours a day and fix every little thing, look over my shoulder, and I'll just have you do it all. And the other is, well, we ignored everything because we thought you were taking care of it. So the server battery backup's been beeping in the closet, and fireworks are going off and whatever, and we didn't even bother to tell you because we figured you knew there was something on fire in the server room. So
now you're supposed to maintain smoke detectors. Does Watchman support that? Do they have? Does Alan have a plugin for the first alert? Smoke detectors yet?
You sure you're not talking about my clients? Because this sounds awfully familiar.
Well, I've joked with people before that you're doing well and you're the trusted advisor for a client when they call you and go, I don't know if you deal with this, but our refrigerators, is basically anything that plugs in and has power, they think you can help them with, right? So it's like, sure. I know it's not your deal, but could you help us with this? So I went into this very fear-based, maybe. It's like, you're thinking about all the stuff that can go wrong. I also had the fear of not wanting to become an MSP like the ones the clients had fired when they came to hire us. So one of the things I said was, anybody that signs up for Partner Plan, we are going to be on site at your office a minimum of once a month for an hour or two. And then we'll let the clients decide if they need more than that and adjust the fees accordingly. So we have some clients who want us out maybe just for an hour or so, but they want us out twice a week. So we're there on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. All of that made for a much better schedule for us. Instead of people sitting around going, I don't know what today is going to be and where I'm going to be at, we're shooting for between 60 and 80% of the team's time is already booked with predefined appointments. And what we said is we're going to come out on site, whether you've got a support ticket in place or not, because if you don't have anything going on, we're going to check the smoke detectors or, check the server and look at software updates and make sure the firmware is right on some things. And what we found is that when they know you're coming out on a regular basis, we have Zendesk, we have phone message, we have tons of ways for them to get in touch with us. And we still have what we jokingly call in the office while you're here.
Right. That's how I spent my morning today.
That's right. You've never heard those, right? So some of that I think has been limited, like what you're asking about, because they know we're going to be out on site, a human to human interaction on a regular basis. And so some of those things just happen on I didn't tell you that printer broke yesterday, but I knew you were coming out today, so just figured I'd catch you when you're here.
Well, it makes sense when you think about it from their perspective. I'm just thinking about this now. It's like you're asking them either to like make the effort to go and figure out how to open a ticket. What was the website again? Let's see.
That's right.
Go. They find the way to make a ticket. They have to actually open the ticket. Then they have to actually explain document the problem and do a good enough job that you'll understand it. And that's already a lot of effort. And they just realize if they're going to see you face to face, that's a much higher bandwidth, method of communicating. And they can just say oh, the thing, it's over there. I don't know, something, and then you're like, what are you talking about? The printer? And they're like, yeah, the printer. And then, so it's like an interrogation process that the burden is more on you as the consultant. And I can really understand that people just would wait. But yeah, how frustrating is that when you show up thinking you're going to spend 20 minutes there and it's 2.5 hours later.
Well, and that's why we've told clients that those on-site visits are going to be between 1 and 2 hours, minimum once a month. And there are times where we show up to a client and we check a few things. And I'll tell the guys, you sit there and you can be in Zendesk answering other tickets, but we have a presence and they're not sitting there seeing numbers, hourly billing numbers going through their head because they're on the partner plan. So we're just in the office and we're there. And when you walk in the door, they may not have anything. And then 30 minutes later, somebody comes up and says something. And so it keeps that kind of personal interaction that you guys talked about at the ACES conference that I think is what so many of the Apple consultants enjoy. It keeps that involved even when you're in a at least for us, in a managed service environment. And yeah, you're right about each client's different about what is a hurdle for them. I mean, some people, it's, we made an email alias and it's look, you have anything, just email help@envisiondesign.net. Everybody on the team sees it. It goes into a ticketing system. We can track it. And I still get a text message. Right. And I have my text expander snippet that says, have you already sent this to help? And, and then it's never mind, I'll just talk to you when you come in tomorrow, right? So it's okay, now I know it's not an emergency and I can go back to my regular schedule.
Can you speak once more to onboarding fee that you mentioned a little while ago? Was that designed mostly as a tool to help you feel like they were getting value by you waiving the fee and then ultimately making it sort of leverage to close the deal? Or with some clients, is there indeed an onboarding fee that's real and tangible that you need to charge?
There's a couple of reasons that we did that. I know that we've talked individually and offline about we did take the hit to set up our own Casper server, and we manage our own Casper server. So there are costs associated with the licensing for Casper, both Mac and iOS. We do Windows stuff now. We use LabTech, which is now ConnectWise. So when we have Watchman, we give a certain number of Backblaze backup accounts away with each partner plan client. I think we do a 5-pack minimum that's included with that service. So there are costs for us that are true onboarding expenses for us when we get a client on board. And then, I think this is pretty typical for most ACNs, but we want to have a fairly unified setup on machines. So when we enroll somebody, we don't just say, okay, just everybody double click on this Watchman installer and you're enrolled and now we're going to move forward. We're going to try to get them to some base level setup as we get started over that first month. And that is going to be extra time that happens in that first month where we want to go in and see what version of the OS everybody's running. We want a separate admin account on all those machines that we can deal with, that we know is clean and we can troubleshoot. And you guys, I know, have home users and small users where there's only one account on the machine. They're the admin. There's no way to test anything. So there's some real cost associated with it. And what we end up doing is if we waive that or if we do a 50% discount, that's just against what we think the long-term benefit of getting that client on board is. But it's a real cost for us because of all the software and because we'll send somebody out on site. Depending on the size of the office, that may be a full day out there trying to touch every machine and get them set up and get them all enrolled and make sure we have a unified admin that we can log in with, that kind of thing.
Understood. On the heels of that, I'm familiar with Casper Suite, but just generally, I'm familiar with their pricing. Can you speak to, maybe take off your Jamf hat for a moment and just sort of confidentially speak about how Casper helps you do what you do if you're actually realizing return on it?
Yeah, I think I'm curious because I don't think the grunt work stuff was available when we started. So I think we manage Casper to do a lot of the things that Gruntwork is doing, right? So there may be options for consultants now where they don't have to spend the money we did. We looked at, the Apple tools weren't enough to try to deploy and manage things. There was Deploy Studio. I mean, we looked at some of the roll your own options. AFP, the guys at AFP, they had some good roll your own from like big universities, like how you could manage deploying apps and those kinds of things. And we ended up choosing to go with Jamf because there's a big community out there. So if I have a 20-person graphic design studio, and this was prior to Adobe Creative Cloud, but if I needed to go install Adobe updates, that stuff was a mess. So you could use the Casper tools to create your own installer package, even if Adobe didn't provide a PKG file that you could push with ARD and that kind of thing. So we use it for those kinds of things to be able, and we manage each client. The way it was explained to us by the Jamf folks is if you think about a big school district, they might have a single Casper server, but they would manage the elementary school and the middle school and the high school as separate units. So we have a single Casper server and we manage each of our clients as kind of a subsidiary. So they have their own kind of little private server and we can manage the apps that they need, run installs and updates and those kinds of things. And Bushel, which is another Jamf product, or AirWatch or some of those things didn't do what we needed to do. I don't know about Gruntwork. What I've heard on your show, there are a lot of the things that Gruntwork can do that we're kind of rolling our own via Jamf Casper that the Gruntwork guys have set up to push those things. But our top-end partner plan clients, we have packages for all their apps. There's an update for something that's not in the App Store. We'll create a package that we can then tell the client that app's getting delivered next Thursday night, and everybody will have the new thing Friday morning, unless you have a couple people traveling, and just make sure they plug their laptop in to the internet. The options were different when we did this a number of years ago. One of my team just went to Austin and got his update certification from Apple on the MDM tools so that we're through the ACN program sort of up to date on that. And they talked a lot about the different MDM servers and what you can do with them. And, he came back from that training saying, I'm still glad that we're running our own Casper server because we have a lot of options that you maybe don't have with some of the other services.
Thank you for taking the time for that, because that's really helpful. Undeniably, Casper Suite is the BMW of one of the best of class. So there's certainly nothing wrong with having a really nice car.
We were in a situation when we made this conversion that we had several larger clients, 20 or more, that helped us make the decision to go all in with Casper. If we didn't have that, if we had more of the 5-user type clients, I don't know if we would have done that. And I'm going to blank on what Casper calls the product, but they have a tool that will let you create those packages that sells for a couple $100, I think. And it basically looks at your system, you run an installer, it looks at your system again, and it helps you create a package that can then be delivered over ARD. And it's like really Casper light. But we looked at that tool as well early on, saying, well, if we're really trying to keep apps up to date, and again, maybe this is because we've got graphic designers and architects and people who use lots of software, But that was one of the pains for us, is trying to make sure everybody on the system is running the same version of the software. Because you've probably heard this before. Oh, we don't need you to do that. We'll just go hit the update. We'll run updates ourselves.
Right.
Yeah. 7 people, and they have 8 different versions of the software because one guy's installed it twice and didn't get rid of the old one. So,
Yeah, we've seen that.
Yeah.
Not to mention clobbering the bandwidth during a busy work day and stuff like
Right.
that. So, yeah.
Well, the guy updates to the newest version 2 hours before the deadline, and then no one else on the team can read the document he just created and put on the server,
Right.
because he's on a newer version than everybody else. And and then that's when our phone rings, and it's our fault.
Right.
Well, what you've outlined, Richard, is a really, really nice recipe, and it's unfortunate that Sam wasn't here, because this would be about the time that he was going to change girlfriends again.
That's right. Yep. Well, in fact, I remember when we interviewed you, Richard, and Jason Harrison of
Yep, we were on the same show. Yep.
Yeah, we interviewed you guys, and I just looked it up. It was back in August of 2015, so not quite a year ago. And I think it was just a light bulb moment for both me and Sam, and maybe you too, Jerry. But thinking about it is in this hybrid approach that you've been outlining, where it's based on a per device or person price plus an hourly, plus a certain number of hours, or like an estimate that would basically cover the equivalent number of hours, whether you show that math, so to speak, or just put it together that way. That certainly was a sort of light bulb moment for me, and that's, in retrospect, it's entirely how I based my plans, building out the pricing based on that methodology. And I think Sam does too, and Jerry, you do something along those lines as well, I think, don't you?
Absolutely. I'm most interested to hear, Richard, in how you take a client that you're unfamiliar with, say the 5 or 10 man shop, and how you come up with a good seat of the pants. I know it's up for quarterly review, and maybe that's the time where you get to tweak your numbers a little bit. But do you have any secret formula that you come up with for basing the number of Mac hours?
Well, there's the magic 8 ball that you shake around and then you flip it upside down. When we first started doing this, we took a bunch of our existing clients and like I said, looked at their history. Well, this is an architect, this is a graphic designer, this is a law firm. All they do is email and internet and scan documents. And so we found in the history of our billing, what the range was, right? If we wanted to be able to say, they have this many Macs, this many servers, and here's how many hours we spent for them over a year, and here's how many we spent for another. We tried to be selective about going back and looking at that data because the fire drill clients, their hours per year are going to be different than the clients who really tried to keep up to date, but they weren't on a managed service plan. And then I kind of have a little numbers spreadsheet that I can go in and plug in all of our device counts, how many mobile devices, iOS or Android, how many Macs, how many Windows machines, how many servers, and that gives me a line item. And then I have a 3-column low, medium, high multiplier for each of those devices. And then I look at the client and go, okay, this is a graphic designer. I know they need lots of maintenance. They are a high touch client. That multiplier per device or per person is going to be higher for them, and that's kind of how it's all, like you said. We hide the math, but it's all based on an hourly billing rate.
I got to stop. I got to ask, what the heck is that? Because all our listeners want to know.
We're office in a artist's 2-story big concrete warehouse, and so somebody's doing art with a sledgehammer next door, I guess. So I didn't know there was a metal sculptor on the floor. I don't know what they're doing.
Wow, that sounds exactly like it sounds exactly like that, actually.
It's probably likely.
Wow.
Sorry, I apologize for interrupting.
That's all right. So the other part of it is just kind of history. So here's where the magic comes in, right? You've done this long enough that you have this gut feeling about this client's going to be needy, this client's going to be pretty self-sufficient. what I like about hiding the math is I do the math in the background and say, okay, that client we think is going to be, they're going to want 2 2-hour visits every other week. So we got 4 hours a month that we're going to be on site. And then, how many tickets are we going to respond to? And so we kind of build a number around what we think it's going to take to support that client. And then I start with what our hourly rate would be if they were just an hourly client, just a break fix client. And then I work backward from that and go, what's the low end of that? So if your hourlies, let's use easy numbers, if your hourly's 200 for the break fix guys, what's the lowest you're willing to accept at 100? And then I know a range of time that we can spend and still make money. So if I'm saying 4 hours a month, if we think we're really going to spend 4 hours a month at $200 an hour, their consulting fees $800, but we could go as low as $400 and maybe still be okay if they're a low maintenance client.
Right. Those are those are your actual costs and where you need to be to actually make a little bit of money, pay your employee, keep the lights on.
When you can go, you know what? So what if in that scenario, we split the difference and we say it's 600 and we have a month where they bought a bunch of new Macs and we spent a bunch of time. Well, in the end, we spent a bunch of time that month and our billable, if we had been hourly, might have been $75 an hour. But I know what my hourly is, as you said, to cover the office space and payroll and all those expenses. So we kind of massage that number, but it all starts with how many hours a month do we think it's going to take us to take care of that client on an average over the year. It doesn't mean every month is going to be exactly 4 hours. Some months are going to be 6, and some months they may be called and go, oh, don't come out to this week or whatever, and maybe we only actually spent 2 hours with that client that month answering tickets remotely.
So just to be clear, in the math, in that calculation, you don't actually show the client that you are sort of budgeting for, X number, 4 hours a month, let's say.
Nope.
Okay.
I say, let's say they want us out on site for at least a 1 to 1.5 hour visit every other week. So every other Wednesday, we're going to come out. We'll just go in and we'll say whatever that line item is. It's going to be different if it's a 5-person office or a 30-person office, but say, hey, your monthly consulting is $1,200 and we're going to be on site twice a month for a minimum of an hour. So we've kind of set a minimum level, but that partner plan contract says, here's all the stuff we're going to do. We're going to manage, monitor, and secure your networks. And by the way, we charge per device, but printers are included, switches are included, routers are included. There's a list of here's what we're doing for that. So we'll show them a single line item number and we'll say, based on what they've asked for, we will always be on site a minimum of once a month. But you've asked that we try to come out every other week, and we're going to try to set that up on a regular schedule so that it's every Tuesday at 3 o'clock or every other Tuesday at 3 o'clock.
Now, if they were to do the math on their side and try to figure out, what they've spent, like just purely on consulting, let's say, services, on a monthly basis over the last year, you're saying that number that you would be, that line item, at least as part of your partner plan agreement, would more or less reflect that? Like, it wouldn't be, much higher or lower than what they were expecting?
When we started with all of our existing clients, that's what we did. We went in and took for like a 2 or 3 year cycle and said, hey, on average, this is how much you were spending per year. And then the number that we quoted them, it was either that number or it was 10 to 20% higher than that, depending on what we knew about how difficult that client was to take care of. So we would go in and say, hey, over the last 3 years, you've spent X bucks a year staying managed. Here's what it's going to cost you now. That's, let's say, 15% higher than what it was before. But we have expenses we're incurring because we're going to pay for all this monitoring software and do all this other stuff. And we're going to do a bunch of proactive work, which didn't get done before. So that's why this number is a little bit higher than what you had before.
And that's all in number. You're not breaking this out on like a consulting side versus per user, per device side?
No, all the partner plans are always the 3-tier invoice. There is a per device. For us, we're doing like $25 a Mac and $4.50 per iOS device, because that puts it in a price range that's similar to like AirWatch or something. But we have those device numbers, and then we have the consulting line item number. The third part of the invoice kind of doesn't matter, because they'd have these costs whether they're with our partner plan or not. If we're hosting email for them, or if we're charging them $5 a month for Backblaze, that's kind of a data center services piece. But if you take those first two, if you take the per device number and our consulting number, those two numbers put together is what their yearly average was, plus maybe 10 or 15%.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then again, the secret sauce for us is, yes, those 3 years may have been fire drill only, or they didn't have very much proactive work. What we're assuming is that we're going to make some or a lot of that up with the efficiencies of Watchman and Zendesk and Casper, or Gruntwork, or whatever else it is. Because before, we'd go into their office and somebody'd have to walk from machine to machine and do the troubleshooting and that kind of thing. So,
have you had conversations with clients where you present all this, and you certainly present your materials and your business plan very, very well. And if I was a customer, I would easily be swayed by your presentation. There's always those sticklers out there that say, you know what, we're just going to take our chances. If they do say that, do you still service that client? Do you say, this is really the way we need to run our business going forward, and it's been a nice relationship, but thank you?
We've kept some of those clients on. It sounds like the sculptor's working again, so I apologize for the noise. What we told all of our existing clients when we moved to being a primary managed service provider is, we said, we got 2 plans now. It is as needed service, which is my polite way of saying fire drills and break and fix. So you can be an as-needed service client, or you can be a partner plan. If you don't want to move to partner plan, there are no special rates anymore. There's no pre-purchase discounted. This is our flat hourly fee, and we're going to charge you for every 15 minutes we spend. And you're going to be second in line to all those partner plan clients. So don't assume that we're going to drop everything and run over to your office every time you cry wolf, because we're servicing those partner plan clients first. I was probably right on about 80% of the clients of who I thought would sign up, no questions asked, and who would be hard sell. And I missed a couple of them where they're like, no, we're going to do it ourselves, and we'll call you if we need you. And, it's just, for us, it's hard, I think, to ever let a client go. But we've realized that the clients who are going to commit are the ones that you want to really work for and service for first, and keep them happy, because the guys who are only looking at cost and aren't looking at their own efficiencies, you're a lawyer billing $350 an hour. Why are you doing your own server? You're really saving money doing your own server updates. You could pay for 3 of us and go be a lawyer and let us do this other piece. But yes, we still offer as needed service, and we just let people know we'll get to you when we can. But before, we may have said, oh, well, you've got something, because we didn't have a laid out schedule. Yeah, I think we can be out there tomorrow at noon. Now they may hear, gosh, my next opening's not till Tuesday, because I have all these regular appointments with my partner plan clients. So we also have emergency rates that are 2.5 times what our regular billable is. And so if they have a fire drill, we can still do that. But we only have 2 plans now. It's as needed, and that's flat hourly, and we bill for everything, or we have the managed service partner plan.
Joe and I have had private conversations about that model in the past, which neither one of us do right now. I just got to ask, do you ever feel greasy? doing that? Because we've laughed about it, and it's kind of like the the guy who says to the store owner, it would be a shame if your storefront window should have a rock thrown through it, and it couldn't be fixed.
No, it usually is a realistic and understanding conversation with a client. So if in the days when we had existing clients who were on the fence about switching to partner plan, and by the way, we still have clients that we had for 5, 7, 10 years who are not on partner plan. And on occasion, it'll come up where we'll have that conversation with them again and say, look, I realize you're only a 4-person office or whatever, but here's what would be good about the partner plan for you.
Right. You could have saved a lot of money had you done this a year ago. Yeah.
Right. Because now you waited till the server died and you're going to pay us a fixed fee to come out and we're going to do a whole new server for you and do all this. If you had been on the partner plan, that would be a replacement server. So what we do is we say anything that's keeping your existing system running is included. So if they have a 5-year-old Mac Mini that dies and they buy a new server, we're going to come put the new one in place, covered under the partner plan. If they have a Mac Mini server and they add a new one, and they now are going to have 2 servers, we'll do a one-time project fee to add that server, and then from then on, they now have 2 servers on their plan. So those guys, and there are times when that conversation, I try very hard to not have it sound like the guys in New York getting protection money for the right. It's like, hey, just so you know, that's not a problem. We still do as needed. We have regularly scheduled appointments with these other clients. And so our response times we will not be able to drop everything and come over to your office. And most of them are like, that's fine, because they realize that most of their issues aren't immediate. And then we explain, if you do have an immediate issue and I've got somebody who's got to leave an existing appointment to come to you, we're going to charge you emergency rates. And that started about 4 years ago when someone called one of my guys' cell phones on Christmas Day because he couldn't get his printer to work.
Wow.
And it's like, that isn't really an emergency. And if emergency holiday rates were $3.50 an hour with a minimum 2-hour rate, he might have thought twice about calling. So he could, how many printers could you buy for that? So generally, it's not presented as a hard sell marketing thing. It is here's what you're going to get, here's our response times, and we're still responding the same day, whether it's a ticket or a phone call. It's just that we want to set the expectation that if you're not on the partner plan, we don't have people sitting around doing nothing waiting for your call, right? And so they're not going to, we got people all over the Houston area. It's often the next day that we can come out, or sometimes it's, hey, if your internet's not down and the thing is not really bad, we can jump in and do a remote session for you and fix the problem in 15 or 20 minutes. So we still do the as needed, but our goal is to have 75 to 80% of our time spent on partner plan clients and kind of fill in the other 20% or so with the as needed or with new projects. Because those new projects often lead to a new partner plan client.
Well, you have my vote. I would sign up for the partner plan. Yeah. I wouldn't wait.
No, I'm going to hire you guys to manage all my servers, and then I'm just going to call you, and then I'm going to go golf. So,
at some point, someone needs to actually do the work. I know we're going to have to find that consultancy somewhere along the way.
The goal in owning your own company really should be trying to obsolete yourself, right? I mean, the idea is trying to get it to a state where it can run without you so that either you can go on vacation or you can sell it at some point in time. So that's the other thing that for the clients, we're pushing for them, hey, the benefit in this value-based consulting versus, hourly billing type consulting is that their systems are running smoothly and they get to concentrate on what they do for a living. The value on our end is the better we get with all this back end managed stuff, the more efficient we get and the more time it should free up for us to either take on other clients or do other things. And I think one quick point that I can't remember if I made it to you guys offline or not, but I think it was listening. I know it was listening to your show, and it may have been one of the ones where Luis was on there. But the aha moment for me to get over my fear of the partner plan managed services thing, I think Luis said something like, "Hey, the more inefficient you are in hourly, the better it is for you, right? Oh, it takes me 12 hours to do a server install or, whatever right. It is, right? But someone in one of those podcasts had the flip side of that, which was my aha moment, which was the better I get at my job and the more efficient I am at my job when I'm billing hourly, the client gets all the benefit of that. And I've thought about my cousin who was a mechanic back in the day when I lived in Austin, and they have books that say, hey, this engine rebuild or this particular thing should take a mechanic 6 hours to do, and that's what the average person it would take to do. And his point was to stay employed at one of the big dealerships, he had to be able to do that in half the time because he's really good at his job. And I thought about that. I was like, oh, so what I want to do is I want fixed fee project-based stuff. I want to be at a place where I say, you go hire anybody else, it's going to take them 5 hours to do this server install. If my team can do it in 3, I want the financial benefit of that coming to me. When I was hourly, it all went to the client. The better we were at our jobs, I gave all of that away to the client. Because, hey, I came in and did this in an hour and it would have taken somebody else 4, and the client got all that benefit because I just billed them for my time. I didn't bill them for the value of that time or what that would have cost them if they did it themselves or if they hired somebody else.
Well put.
Absolutely. The reference was, I think Luis said that hourly billing is the scum of the earth. That was one of his many quotes. He said
it's so hard to get him to say what he really feels.
Yeah, right. He said that hourly, I wrote down some of these. This was back in the Managed Services Roundtable. We did a 2-part series a couple of years ago. And he said that hourly billing breeds inefficiency. So on the flip side of what you're saying is that like if I'm billing by the hour, like you said earlier, it's in my interest almost to like just keep running the clock and keep billing. All-inclusive billing breeds efficiency is the way he put it, which is that, when I'm basically charging a flat rate, I need to be as efficient as possible in order to maximize my profit margin. So he put it in a really, it was definitely a memorable thing, feeling like I'm the scum of the earth every time I write an invoice, but there's some truth to it.
To not go back to the New York mafia or whatever and saying, hey, well, here's your protection money you're paying and the hourly stuff. I'd flipped it for me to say, hey, what am I getting when I do this managed service? And, could I just do that stuff myself? Well, there's a lot of other expenses for all the training that we go to and all that we do to keep our skills up, right? So the thing for me is not just efficiency, but to say, if we're going to try to provide a better service than what they're going to get elsewhere, whether that's a Geek Squad or some other consultant or they're doing it themselves, I want all that hard work and training and the work that we do to be good at our job to benefit us, right? So go, great, we came in, we did your server, and here's your flat fee to get that Mac server or Synology server up and running. And yep, we did it in 2 hours, and it may have taken somebody else 4 or 6, but we're going to stand behind our work, and we'll, if tomorrow or the next day someone can't log on, we're going to finish the job and do some troubleshooting for you. But the efficiency benefits us instead of giving all that away to the client. And then you can decide how you split that and say, hey, we know we're 50% faster than anybody else because we're trained. Anybody else you could hire to do this, we're 50% faster, so we're going to give you a 25% discount. And then you've split that benefit with the client. But when we were doing hourly, we got the better we did our job, we gave all of that benefit to the client. And then, as you guys have noted, When you're billing hourly and something goes wrong, whether it's your fault or not, they're upset with you. Comcast or Time Warner or whoever set up the internet or whoever you were taking over for had made a complete mess of things. And we couldn't get the internet running because Comcast gave us the wrong static IPs, and it took 3 phone calls and 2 hours to get to someone to go, oh, sorry, our bad, let me fix that. And then we try to bill for that, and the client's like, well, you said it was only going to cost this much. So only in rare cases do we do hourly for new projects like setting up a server or setting up new computers. We know what it takes us to do it, try to get that benefit back to us now with value-based consulting rather than hourly-based. It's a hard sell for some folks to get them to sign up for that, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it makes a lot of sense, when you put it that way. And I think it relies on, though, the expertise of having, done this sort of work for so long that you can very accurately predict things, or, if on average your predictions are going to be pretty close to accurate. And, if a few of them are outliers, you kind of it all comes out in the wash.
Yeah, if you get 7 out of 10 right, you're still doing well. Right. You guys, and I'm assuming the audience here, generally has enough experience. Like, where the potholes are going to be and where the things that people are going to misstep on. Having trust in yourself and your training and in the team that you're working with too, to be able to do that.
Definitely. Well, it's a great way to transition your offerings toward managed services or hybrid managed services and project-based billing and, sort of minimal hourly based work anymore. And I certainly see that as a trend. We've been seeing it for a few years now of the industry. And it seems like a natural progression just in the microcosm of a single business when, you start off billing at a certain rate and maybe you're less efficient because you have less experience and it takes you longer and you make a little bit, more money because you're billing more hours for the same work, but it takes you longer and that's not in the client's interest. And as you get better and better trained, you're billing fewer hours and doing, the same work for less money, essentially. Then you're raising your rates to kind of match your experience and to make up for the fact that you're more efficient. And then at some point, you kind of have to get off that, I think, hamster wheel and just then, transition to more predictable income.
To that point that you're making, it was a really good point, too. My financial advisor, CPA for the company, is a longtime friend, and he talked about when we were making this transition, he and I were talking, and he's like, if everything you bill is hourly, the only way you can make more money is to hire more people and bill more time. You can't make more hours in the day. Right. At some point, you as an individual have to sleep, so you got to hire somebody to have more billable time. Whereas if you get on something where you can get some efficiencies, like with Casper and Watchman and these other things, then what you're doing is you're allowing the same number of people to do more and bill more. And so then you can get more profitable without having additional expense of just, well, I need to make more money, so I got to hire another guy, which is more expense. And I can still only bill him 8 hours a day. And then I've got to fight to make sure, well, what happens when he's only billable 4 hours on that day? CPA helping me see that cycle could get ugly in a hurry if you want to grow. If you're a sole proprietor, some of this may not make sense, but at that point when we made the switch, we had committed to growing and hiring some staff and trying to, as you guys were saying, have a base known income every month instead of roll the dice, wonder what it's going to be this month. Right. So
you're praying for tragedy, you're just like
that's right.
hoping.
Oh, good. Another storm is coming through Houston.
Right.
Didn't have their backups and their APCs in place. So we're going to have a lot of calls tomorrow.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's not good karma to be praying for thunderstorms, and hoping for servers to go down. Once again,
I can't imagine who would do that.
I'm sure we've all been there.
Battery backups at a special price just for you.
I might have been there once or twice. I'm just saying.
You got to get a voodoo doll of the old I don't know, Mac Pro Tower Xserve. Yeah, exactly, an Xserve voodoo doll, and stick some pins in that.
Praying for that bottom hard drive in a Mac Mini server to go bad. That takes for it to get right.
I did that one a couple weeks ago in my own Mac Mini. That was not fun. That was like a make it work kind of situation. I was going by the iFixit guides and just kind of winging it, and it was my own machine. So
42 different steps and 7 different types of screws, and be sure you don't put that long screw in the wrong hole. Yeah, it's fun.
Exactly. Anytime you're sticking a metal tool into holes in the logic board, and just hoping it's lined up right, and it's a crapshoot.
Yeah, those are not fun.
Well, once again, Richard, it's been great having you on, and left us, I think, with even more food for thought. And as Jerry said, I hope Sam doesn't listen to this and consider revising his entire business model. But
well, once you know what the episode number is, you can warn him to not be driving so that he doesn't have rage when he's pulling over and right. So.
Thank you again, Richard Wingfield of Envision Design. You're the head geek there, and for taking the time out to speak with us again on Command Control Power. You guys are at envisiondesign.net, and I guess your Twitter, is it still at Geeks Applied?
We've got that one, and my personal one is RBWAIA. My good old days of being an architect. That AIA was American Institute of Architects. Yeah, so got that handle early, and just have to keep pretending that I still do that, I guess. But I appreciate you guys having me on and letting me vent all the stuff we didn't get to talk about in person at the ACES conference. I will see you for sure next year. I'm sure I voiced the entire community here saying we love what you guys do and how you've become kind of a really great focal point for the community, and look forward to catching up at ACES and hearing more podcasts. And if you guys get to Houston, let me know. And the cold beverages and barbecue are on me. So just let me know if you're down this way.
Sounds terrific.
Will do. Thanks again, Richard.
All right. Take care, guys.
Command, control, power. Late night logs and blinking lights, a ticket queue that never ends. Jerry's on a call with someone who forgot their password again. Sam's in a server room tracing wires and cooling fans, and Joe's explaining line by line the plan that saves the day. 13 plus years of real world fixes, and we've still got tales to share. My keyboard's stuck, have you tried restarting? My screen's gone dark, have you tried restarting? My Bluetooth's lost, have you tried restarting? My boss is crawling